Hey guys, so everyone is freaking out about Gnar, and I figured I'd make a video with the best decks to run him in for the start of the new expansion. So first of all will just be a quick explanation of what Gnar does, so no one is confused. He's a 4 mana 4/3 with quick attack, and then when he strikes he creates a pokey stick in hand, or if you have one already you reduce its cost by 1 instead. And then on the round end, if you've damaged the enemy Nexus that round, he'll level up, and when he levels up he grants the strongest enemy vulnerable, and he'll get Overwhelm on top of the quick attack, and become a 6/5. But then on the round end, if you had the attack token at the start of that turn, you like revert back into your level 1 form. But yeah, I mean he has some strong stats and keywords, and gives you one of the best if not the best cards in Bandle City, being Pokestick. And even though he like levels back down to 1, he basically doesn't do that unless you've already had a chance to attack with him, which is pretty good. Yeah, so he looks really strong, and we are probably going to find out a bunch of more decks to run him in. But even right now, before the release, there are a lot of good options to try already on day 1. So the first deck is Gnar Sejuani. They make some sense together since Gnar wants to ping the Nexus, and even gives you some resources to do it with Pokesticks, which will help Sejuani. Sejuani is a super strong champion that shuts down a lot of mid-range decks. She requires you to deal Nexus damage in 5 different rounds, but then after she levels, once per turn when you deal Nexus damage, you freeze the entire enemy board. And after the gangplank and monster harpoon nerfs a while ago, this could actually overtake the other GP Sejuani version, but that remains to be seen. Yeah, so the ways we have to ping Nexus are the Inventive Chemist, which summons you this landmark that'll ping the Nexus in a few turns. You have Poison Dart, which can go face, but also gives you these Poison Puff Caps in the enemy deck, which if they draw it, will deal 1 damage to the Nexus on like a random turn, which could help you later. Conchologist can give you some different ping spells, because he manifests a random spell from your regions that cost 3 or less, and so you have a decent chance to find a ping in there, but it's still going to be good value regardless. Then Pokestick can ping, the impact from Stone Stackers can ping, and we also have this new card called Tusk Speaker. It's actually pretty crazy for leveling up things like Sejuani, because it's only 2 mana, and when it comes down it has this play effect where it deals 1 damage to all Nexuses, and it has Overwhelm, so if you play this on a defensive turn, it'll give you a ping on defense, and then next turn you can attack and it'll probably deal Overwhelm damage because it has 3 attack and Overwhelm. So if you use it right, you can get 2 pings out of it. Then we run Ice Shard, deals 1 damage to everything. Of course we have Gnar himself, has Overwhelm and Pokesticks. And then we can also run the Teeny Dactyl and the Spotted Toad. They both have a round end effect where they transform into something else if you've damaged the enemy Nexus that round. But so Teeny Dactyl transforms into the Pterodactyl, and it has some pretty crazy stats, and then on the round start, it'll deal 1 damage to the enemy Nexus. So this will really start helping to level up Sejuani. And it's almost like a mini Leviathan if you've ever played Leviathan, like Swain Sejuani before. At the start of the round, if you have Sejuani leveled up, you're going to freeze the entire board by default, and start whittling away their health, so it's pretty strong I think. And then Spotted Toad transforms into Giga Gromp, and again the impact's going to be able to be used to get Sejuani procs or freeze the whole board. And it's just a pretty strong unit that they're going to have to get over somehow, and it has like some pretty insane stats. The card I'm kind of iffy about in this deck is Chief Knack Attack. You probably could swap it out, but I just personally want to try it in this deck at least day 1. It's decently statted himself, and then when an ally transforms, you fully heal it and grant it +1/+1. I think this can be pretty useful, especially on Gnar, since he's transforming over and over again. But yeah, it's quite possible there's like a better option to put in the deck. Some possible cards to consider would be Babbling Bjerg. So when Bjerg is summoned, it'll draw you a unit with 5+ power, which should be only Sejuani in this deck. So playing like one of this could make a lot of sense, maybe even a couple, because of how important Sejuani is to the deck. You could also consider Bone Scryer. It's pretty cheap and has 5 health. Now whenever it survives damage, you deal 1 to the enemy Nexus. And so I imagine this would basically just stun the entire enemy board on a lot of decks, because they know if they attack, all they're going to do is give you 1 ping to your Sejuani. And so they probably pass up a lot of attacks if you just plop this on the board, I imagine. Part of the reason I didn't put it in though, is that it's too easy for the enemy to play around it and stop you from getting this ping. But again, maybe that's worth it depending on what you're playing against. You could also consider this new card called Mammoth Shaman. It's pretty expensive, but it has one of those effects where it transforms at the end of the round if you've pinged the Nexus. But he ends up transforming into the Mammoth Rager. And so Mammoth Rager is a 6/6 with Overwhelm. And I think it actually might get its bonus effect right at the start, where on round start it grants it +2/+2. So I haven't like seen it be played yet, but it might actually be like an 8/8 once you trigger the effect, which would be a pretty powerful attack on like turn 7 or something. And again, it would keep growing, so it would definitely be a scary threat. So if the deck needed more late game, you could definitely consider that. Next up is Gnar Burn. This deck was pretty powerful a while ago, before Poppy was nerfed, and maybe Gnar can revive it. It still has a strong early game and can be really aggressive, and has a lot of ways to deal damage to trigger Gnar's level up, as well as teeny dactyls. This deck is really easy and should be really good actually, especially on day 1 when a lot of decks are being played that are unrefined with all the new cards. It's also just good against slower decks in general. Yeah, if you wanted to climb really fast on day 1, this might be one of your best bets. So this is a combo deck that looks really fun, to me personally. The main combo is using this Papercraft dragon onto an overwhelm unit, and giving it double attack. The targets you'd want to give this to would be Gnar, because when he levels up he'd get overwhelm. Renekton already has overwhelm. And then Rune Runner, which has overwhelm, a lot of attack, and also spell shield. So if you don't know how attach works, basically this unit can be used like equipment in some way. So basically you pay the 5 mana, like unit mana, and you can attach this card onto a unit, like I said. And then you grant that unit your stats, which would be 2/2, and double attack. And so you can have like some crazy OTK potential. Also, there's a lot of weird things with how attach works that I might explain in a later video. But one thing we know for sure is that when you actually try to silence a unit that has this onto it, it'll silence the original unit stats, but not actually this card attached to it. So let's say for example that you have a Renekton and the Papercraft dragon onto it, right? It would be a 6/6 with double attack and overwhelm. So one attack would do 12 damage. But let's say they hush it, right? Well, it would lose the overwhelm, but it would still be a 6/6 double attack, because it wouldn't actually silence the Papercraft dragon's effect. And same with Minimorph. So if they Minimorph this, it would then become a 3/3, but then it would get buffed up by +2/+2, so it would be a 5/5 with double attack and would strike for 10 damage. And so the really insane thing about this is that when you combine it with Absolver, you can end up beating a lot of different decks. Because the way Absolver works is that it gives an ally +2/+1, but if you've leveled a champion already this game, you get the Absolver's return into your hand as well, which is like another copy of this card. It'll give a unit +2/+1 again, but also overwhelm. And since Gnar can actually level up pretty fast and pretty easily, it's really cool to pair it with Absolver. Because once you've leveled up a Gnar, even if it's died or whatever, if you're attacking with like a Renekton or even better a Rune Runner, because they'd have to get to the spell shield somehow first, even if they did Minimorph it, if you had the Papercraft dragon on it, it would get Minimorph to a 3/3. It would still keep the stats from the attached unit and keywords, so it would be still a 5/5 double attack like I said. But now if you put the Absolver onto it, it would become a 9 mana still double attack and overwhelm to push for a potential of 18 damage. And that's like assuming you have no other ways to add on to the damage, which we do run in the deck. Yeah, so you can punish things like Hushes and Minimorph, which is really cool for this deck. The only thing you can't really beat is like hard removal, and that's why I play a Rite of Negation. Because you can just kill an ally or destroy one of your mana gems to stop all like spells and skills like Deny. And we can also try using this new card called Friendship. Yeah, so it's pretty flexible and allows you to like counter a lot of different cards and even some hard removal. Yeah, so if you like combo decks, this is probably really fun. Again, it has the potential to do some crazy like one-turn kills, and it actually seems like it can play around a lot of different things. So it's definitely worth trying out. You could also consider playing like a Sivir. So when Sivir levels up, what happens is that she shares her keywords with all of her allies. So if you gave her double attack, she would give double attack to like your whole board, as well as spell shield if she still has it. But that personally seemed a bit worse than like Renekton and just having overwhelm by itself. We actually do have some ways to level up Renekton, even though he is like normally pretty hard to level. They did buff him a little while ago where all he needs is 10 damage to level up. But we have ways to make things vulnerable so he gets his effect off and gets the extra attack with Merciless Hunter, Rockhopper, and even a Ruthless Predator. And his own champion spell would do that as well. So I think this version is probably more consistent, but you could definitely consider running Sivir if you really wanted to. And if you did run Sivir, you might even want some of the other attached units like the elusive one. I think it's called Rainbow Fish. Also, depending on the meta, you should always consider this new card in Bandle called Wallop. It deals 1 to an enemy and stuns it. It's not that strong in my opinion, but depending on the meta, you might just want access to a stun in these regions. So I just want to put that out there. By the way, that would also be good like offensively in this deck, because if they have like a pretty high health blocker and you just stun it, you get to push like the maximum amount of damage through. So this new version of Yordle in Arms seems really scary to me. It was already pretty strong before, but it looks even better to me now. Fizz was the other second champ to Lulu and never really felt that good, at least to me personally. And so Gnar might make this deck really nuts. It also got another really good card for it called Yordle Portal. To play it, you discard one card, and then you manifest a Yordle that costs 3 or less, and then you summon it. And so this makes sense for a few different reasons. If you don't know the deck, I'll explain it. So basically, the first card that it revolves around is Yordle in Arms. It's a 5 mana slow speed spell that gives allies +2/+2 this round, but if you've summoned or cast cards from 4 different regions, you give allies +4/+4 instead. And so because you need to summon things from different regions, this Yordle portal actually makes a lot of sense because you can manifest a Yordle that's from a region that you haven't played yet. And the other thing that the deck revolves around is this Flame Chompers. So Flame Chompers is a 0/2 challenger unit. It costs 2 mana, but when it's discarded you summon it for free. And so this can be used to drag units out of the way and push damage so they can't block. But you can also combine it with Lulu, because Lulu has an effect where her supported ally grows up to 4/4 this round, and so you can use it on Flame Chompers and like really control the board and kill a lot of things. Or just push extra damage if you use the Lulu effect onto like one of these Daring Poros from Poro Cannon. The Daring Poros are 1 mana 1/1s that are elusive. And so Yordle Portal will be able to manifest you a Yordle, potentially from a region that you haven't played yet to help for your Yordle in Arms condition. And it'll summon it at burst speed as well as giving you the Flame Chompers at burst speed. And so you can threaten some really scary open attacks, and also some really scary developments with Yordle in Arms. And Gnar just being a really good standalone unit, like I just really think this deck is going to be good. You also have Burn to like help close out games. Get Excited is actually probably even pretty good in this meta as well to counter like enemy Gnars. Yeah, and so the other regions you play to like help trigger the Yordle in Arms, you already have a lot of PNZ, and all of your other multi-region cards are Bandle as well. And then you have Bomber Twins for Shurima, and gives you a landmark that can either be useful to you or you can just discard it. Telescope is Targon, and it can actually create you an epic or multi-region follower that can be from a region that you need as well, to make it even easier. Then Lulu is also part Ionia. Again, the portal can give you one. Gnar will also count as Freljord. We also have Yordle Captain to buff our stats even more. But yeah, don't like sleep on this deck, it's gonna be really good. So then we have a new version of Pink City. It can be pretty aggressive, and like the name suggests, it has a lot of little points of damage which can level up Gnar easily, and also GP as well. So GP is a 5 mana 5/4 with Overwhelm, and when he's summoned he also summons you a Powder Keg, which is an immobile unit that'll increase the damage of like your next spell or skill by 1. So for example, if you have a Keg and use a Make It Rain, instead of dealing 1 to 3 different randomly targeted enemies, you would deal 2 to each thing. And then when he levels up, he starts giving you kegs every single round. And he gets this effect where when he attacks, he deals 1 damage to the entire enemy board and their nexus. And again, that will scale with his kegs. But yeah, so Gangplank can like wipe the whole board and do a lot of different damage. And this deck has quite a bit of ways to actually level him up pretty fast. We also have some late game with the Dreadway. It doubles all damage dealt by your skills, spells, and allies. So if they don't get rid of this right away, you basically win the game. And when you play it, you also draw a Gangplank out of your deck. Yeah, again, you just have a bunch of early units to help like control the board and do a bunch of damage, while also being able to remove some of your opponent's units with Make It Rains and like Poison Darts or even Pokies. Then you can just play good cards like Gnar, Teeny Dactyl, GP, Dreadway to finish them off. Also Double Up can push for a lot of damage. It deals 2 to an enemy, and then if it kills it, it deals 4 to the enemy nexus. And so that can be pretty scary, especially if you have a Keg on board. You could also potentially change this deck a little bit around and play with TF instead of GP. You'd probably want to find a way to fit in this card as well though. It's a 2-drop that gives you a Powder Keg, because TF has a red card ability where he deals 1 damage to every enemy unit and the nexus. And so that combined with a Keg can just like wipe the entire enemy board. And depending on what the meta is tomorrow, that could be way stronger. I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah, it should be another solid option to use day 1. So this is like a bonus deck I wanted to throw out there. I don't know if it really counts as a Gnar deck, but basically I think that this Bandle Tree deck is going to benefit a lot from Gnar, just because he's just a really good unit. And I think the Bandle Tree is already in a pretty good spot. If you don't know what the Bandle Tree is, it's a 5 mana landmark that on round start creates you a follower from a new region in hand, and you win the game if you've summoned units from 10 different regions. And so it basically just runs a bunch of units in different regions. So House Spider is a Noxus card. When you summon it, it gives you a Spiderling, which is actually a Shadow Isles card. So it can give you 2 different regions in one. Cannon is Ionia, Bomber is Shurima, Grumble is Bilgewater, Telescope Targon, Aloof is PNZ, and Poppy is Demacia. Yeah, you can end up just playing a lot of different units, and then using like Poppy or Gnar to do a bunch of damage and actually just kill them straight up. But if you lose control of the board, or for whatever reason you can't actually kill them, you can just play it really slow and play for the Bandle Tree win con. and just play really safe, just block properly, and play all the different regions. Yes, I think this is going to be another good deck to run, especially day 1. Probably for a lot of the season, honestly, until like they do some changes, like a balance patch or something. And so I just wanted to throw this deck in there as well. Yeah, that's all I have for today. I want to thank you guys for watching this far if you did. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Maybe even like the video, it would really help me out. And as always, if you want to see me play anything in the near future, you can leave a comment below. I make a Runeterra video every single day, so the extra ideas are definitely useful. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks.